in, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So welcome everybody. Really excited that you're here, and we can't see you, so we're kind of speaking out into the ether, or I'm speaking out into the ether. I should speak for myself. I'm speaking out into the ether, knowing that you're all coming in, and really excited to have you join us and welcome you today. We're going to be hanging out here for a little while until we know that the majority of folks that have signed up are joining. So we'll give it just a couple more minutes. But while we are waiting, if you'll go ahead and open up chat, Celia has put some instructions for people who are joining. If you're not able to see those instructions, please go ahead and share your location, where you're joining from today. That'll help us to be able to identify who's in our community today and welcome you all, and thank you for being here. So thanks for joining. I'm excited to have you all here. Let me see if I can open the chat.
So many East Coast folks, welcome. Thank you for calling in your afternoon time.
Yes. New York, Minneapolis, Miami, Oakland, hey, right over there. Missoula, Montana, yeah. Skid Row Coffee in LA, thanks for being here. Long Beach, we got good representation from California today, no surprises there.
Washington, we did not forget you. Our West Coast sisters, thank you for joining. Santa Cruz.
Hey, street teams, glad you're here today. Minneapolis, hope you're staying warm in the Midwest. And in New York, I haven't checked the weather. I just got back from sunny Southern California. I know everybody was having some crazy weather before I left, and I hope everybody is surviving and getting warmed up there, has access to electricity, all that good stuff. Yeah, it was a great trip in sunny SoCal. Philly, thanks for joining us today. Super excited to have you all here. We'll take one more minute and then I think we can go ahead and jump in. Meta, are you able to see how many folks are here on the panel? I mean, not on the panel, but in the...
Yep, we have about 48 people. So we got
great.
Bigger group.
Yeah, awesome. So we have over 100 people signed up today, but as most people who have ever hosted a free event on Zoom know, we don't expect everybody to actually show up. That's okay. We are going to record today. So we want to make sure that folks know that they are going to be able to access all of the information that we are sharing today on our website, and we'll share out the link at the end of the presentation, but please know that you won't lose anything if you need to drop or you're having spotty service. You'll be able to return and check in. So thank you all for being here. And Celia, do you feel ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's start.
Okay, great.
So welcome everyone to our Accelerator application webinar. You'll see our agenda very nicely laid out here. Just quick welcome for everyone in the space today. We'll go through just all the folks currently on the call from the REDF team. We'll also go over very quickly for y'all, like, what is REDF? Like, who are these folks that are hosting this webinar? Go again into what is our accelerator program, as this may be new for some folks here. We'll talk about our eligibility criteria a bit, but the bulk of the webinar today will be dedicated to kind of going in to what we look for in our accelerator applicants, kind of what we use as our review criteria, and then also just walking through the application itself. We use SM Apply as our platform. That can be somewhat confusing, somewhat intimidating, just wanting it to be as approachable as possible for y'all, and then leaving space for y'all to ask any questions that you do have. And Mimi, I do see your question. Yes, the presentation will be available to everyone post-session, and then also we have a recording, so that'll be sent out to everyone who RSVP'd, whether or not you are present today. So yeah, Lauren, we can go to that next slide. So just a quick, what is REDF? To answer your question, we're a venture philanthropy that invests in employment social enterprises. So what is an employment social enterprise? That may be a new term for some people. So an employment social enterprise, or ESE, we define as a mission-driven organization and a revenue-generating business. So this business not only generates revenue, but employs, empowers, and invests in folks with potential and those with barriers to employment. We have a specific list of barriers to employment that REDF works with. Some of those include those who are experiencing homelessness or have experienced homelessness, those who are previously incarcerated, refugee community, those who are identifying as opportunity youth, and several other barriers that we work with. Additionally, as a venture philanthropy, we take a business approach to grant making. So we offer capacity building, we offer a community space and network that you gain access to through our programs, and then we also offer leadership support to those who lead the employment social enterprise as a whole. Lauren, next slide. So
yeah,
what exactly do we?
People, maybe people already have questions, and if they do, we just want to differentiate between chat and the Q&A. So if you have questions as we're going that pertain to the application, the process, and what we're sharing, please put your questions in the Q&A, because we'll be able to address all of those after we run through the information. If you have kind of some comments or something that you want to address before that, please go ahead and put that in the chat. But just know we're not able to monitor the chat the entire time, so you might not get your question addressed in the chat in real time either. But please go ahead and put those questions there. Thanks, Leah.
Yeah, of course. So just talked high level about who REDF is, who we work with, just a bit more detail into what exactly it is that we do and what our support looks like. That looks like investing capital into specific organizations. For example, through the REDF Accelerator, not only is it a leadership program, but at the end of our program, there's a $20K grant offered to all 18 participants in our cohorts. We advise organizations and businesses. That's mainly offered through our loan fund as well as our growth portfolio group, and that's offered through our capacity building arm. We also have internally a policy team. That team works on normalizing the word employment social enterprise that is new for so many folks, both on a local scale and local government, as well as a national scale. That is a one-person team. Money is amazing. But then we also do several other things, such as connect folks in the field through our community team, sharing our knowledge and experience through our online platform, and then also just developing and building these communities through partnerships, not only with local partners, but just leaders in general. So spaces like this where we get to connect with you all. And then next slide. So just very high level, these are our programs. There are about 5 programs here listed that folks can actually apply for in the REDF kind of, I guess, team. So the first 2 programs listed here are the programs offered as kind of an entering pipeline for kind of the REDF community. The first one is the REDF Impact Investing Fund. So that's a 501c3 within REDF that offers loans to nonprofit and for-profit employment social enterprises. So while the Accelerator is one of those programs, REEF is also available to any new folks that may be interested in kind of being introduced to the REDF community or want to apply for funding and not participate in the Accelerator. The REDF Accelerator is another one of those programs that you'll be learning about today, but that is our leadership program offered to early stage, mid-stage employment social enterprises. We have our growth, the REDF community. So the REDF community is the program that all employment social enterprises that participate in our programs have access to. So currently that's a community of 150 employment social enterprise leaders who have participated in a program, been with the REDF community for as short as a year to 12 years. So really great programming is offered through that team, through networking, etc. The growth portfolio, that's a new program that just launched this year. Applications recently closed. That is a multi-year investment grant offered to employment social enterprise leaders within organizations that have an earned revenue of a 300K and above. That grant is also a 300K grant over the span of 3 years. So it's about 100K offered a year to orgs in that group. If you are interested in the growth portfolio, those applications open this coming fall. And then lastly, capacity building. So that is the arm of our organization that offers that consulting to our groups. Great. So this is just a map just showing the national kind of reach of REDF. We became a national organization around 2016. And so you'll see that a lot of our organizations are located on the West Coast, predominantly California, but we're really working on getting that reach further towards the East Coast and really that middle America space that we'd love to connect with. Yeah, so just a bit more about the accelerators, why y'all are here today. So applications opened February 16th and they closed March 29th. In that time span, we'll go into a bit more detail of what that timing looks like and what opportunities there are to connect with our team in the meantime. May 20th is when everyone, so each applicant that submits an application will hear back from us, and then the program itself starts June 16th with our session. And then under that, you'll see the different session dates. So you'll see some of these dates are parsed out. So the idea is that our sessions span over 2 weeks for session 1 and session 2, but only across several days. So it's not that we have your full time across those 2 weeks, but really understanding in a virtual environment, like, you know, folks are at home. We don't want it to be too overwhelming for y'all. So you'll see first session is June 16th to the 17th. That's across 2 days. And then you'll have a weekend following week, the 22nd through the 25th. You'll see a similar pattern for session 2. And then session 3 is across 1 full week in October. Every session is every other month, but the program is a total of 5 months long.
One of the questions that we've heard is, you know, how many hours a day are we in session over the days that are listed? And I would say session days range in around 5 hours a day. So on June 16th and 17th, you'd anticipate being in session for about 5 hours a day.
Yes. And in between each session, there are opportunities to connect. We have programming available. There will be homework assignments, networking opportunities, happy hours, etc. But these are just the key dates we wanted to put in front of y'all today, but happy to answer further questions during Q&A. Yeah, so kind of the dates I spoke to, these are specific dates that you may hear from the Accelerator team. So within our application, you'll see later, Lauren walk through our kind of application workflow. So between March 16th and 29th, you all will hopefully be submitting an application to the Accelerator. You may, when you open the application, you'll be asked to fill out an eligibility quiz. That eligibility quiz is just like helping us and helping you better understand, like, what is it that we're looking for? What are the criteria? It's like one final check before you dedicate time to filling out the application. If for that eligibility quiz, you get an ineligible message, our team will actually follow up with you, since we understand that a lot of organizations are very unique and not everyone fits into kind of this box or definition that REDF uses. So it's just an opportunity for us to connect with y'all following that eligibility quiz. And that's between the application cycle, which is the 16th to the 29th. Once the application closes between the 30th and the 23rd of April, we will actually be reviewing applications. So in that time period, you may hear from our team asking, and we'll be reaching out with follow-up questions. So if we have questions about what you filled out on your application, we want to clarify something with you before we make any assumptions about your program, or if you wrote something and we just want to make sure we understood it right, you'll be hearing from us in this timeline. And then lastly, of course, we mentioned it earlier, May 20th is when all applicants will be notified of their status. And you know, the happy hour box is a great idea, Andrea. We are actually planning programming now, so we will keep that in mind. Going into our eligibility, so what do we look for? Like, who can apply for this program? You'll see it listed here, and it's across our websites. It's on the SM Apply platform we use for application. But just very straightforwardly, the applicant is one form of that criteria, and then there's the enterprise that participates in our program. So the applicant itself, it can be anyone in your organization, but we want to make sure that the person who applies and participates in our program is the person who has that decision-making authority in the organization for the program itself. During the accelerator, you'll be offered the opportunity to test different hypotheses you'll have. If you want to try something new in your program, we want to make sure that you have kind of the power in your organization to make those changes and really test what you're learning in the accelerator. Secondly, committing to attending those 3 virtual sessions. We know folks are busy. We did our first virtual session last year, and some folks hopped in and out throughout session. And so really, we will have that flexibility, but we do want to make sure that those 3 sessions, you are present, as a lot of our content is going to be presented then. But always, of course, willing to work around that. Willing and able to provide 2 years of key data. So when you graduate from the accelerator, as well as when you're in it, REDF is asking for specific data, and that's just about your program. So how many participants do you have, the demographic breakdown, your earned revenue for that year. And so we'll ask that across the 2 years, and then also 2 years once you graduate. And then we also ask for a few data points while you're in our program. And then lastly, for the applicant itself, willing to work on these challenging issues that y'all face as leaders. We recognize at times it's uncomfortable to like critique your organization. It can be really challenging doing that work, but we're all here together. So as long as you come in open-minded, willing to work on it, and really tackle that risk in your organization, we would love to work with you in it. The enterprise, this is what we look for. You know, we want to make sure you are paying your employees. We recognize employment social enterprises do have different models. One requirement that REDF has for their ESEs is that you offer a wage to your employees. That wage can look like hourly. It can also be a stipend, but the idea is that it equates to the local minimum wage of your area. Secondly, is that your employment social enterprise has an earned revenue between 100K and 2 million. On our website, there's a specific detail of maybe you're under the 100K mark, but the idea is that you will meet 100K by the end of this year. And we're also happy to talk more about that during Q&A if any of that is confusing. Again, must pay wages that meet your local minimum wage threshold, and then also have been in operation for at least a year from our application launch date. Yeah. So I will pass it on to Lauren. She'll go into a bit more detail of our application, but this is just a visual of what she'll be walking through right now, which is our application structure. As I mentioned earlier, you'll see that eligibility quiz when you log on and try to go into our application. The only reason that is present is just to make sure that you all know exactly what it is we're looking for from our applicants, and also make sure that you know what you're getting into before you fill out an application that we know it takes a bit of time. Then you'll be led into our application, as well as providing ESE information about your enterprise. And then there'll be several essay questions around mission, vision, and your business model. And then lastly, you'll be asked a few demographic questions. But I will pass it on to Lauren.
Thank you, Celia. So in terms of the application, it is broken down into 4 parts. There are 37 questions. About 3/4 of them are like a fill in the blank, or pick one from this list, or check all that apply. And then the final quarter are paragraph-based questions. I'll go over one of the paragraph questions, paragraph form questions toward the end of the webinar today to give you a better sense of how we're hoping that you will think about answering those questions. In terms of the demographic data is not shared with the reviewers. They're used for our curation and bias mitigation. So what we want to do is make sure that at the end, when we go through all of the applications that were reviewed, was one group really left out, or was there something about our questions that misled applicants into answering them in a certain way, so that we can really understand how different groups are impacted by our application process, and then mitigate that before we go into the selection period. There are a number of questions that are multi-part questions. So we want to make sure that you are breaking down all of the different parts of that question, and that'll be more clear when we look at one of the examples. And though you are able to save your work, I do recommend that you write your questions and answers out separately and then import them back in as you're going. Okay, so who benefits most from the ESEs? ESE leaders who can speak to the following are really in a great place to take advantage of all that the accelerator has to offer. And if you feel like, oh, we're just not there yet, that's okay. These are not eligibility criteria. These are really kind of like, what are we thinking about? How can an applicant really stand out? What is highly competitive as we are looking through your application? So let's talk a little bit about these and how to speak to these in your application. And then after we walk through the application structure, I'll share one of those examples and we'll talk about how you might approach it. Okay, so I just want to take a pause here for a moment. If you're doing something else right now, like you're multitasking while you're listening, which is something that I usually am doing, I want you to pause and I want you to listen carefully to this next part. So if you're a note taker, now is the time to make sure that you are taking notes. Okay, I want to go through this and make sure that you really understand what it is that we're looking for so that you can speak to these areas in your application. So the first one is mission alignment. If the ESE currently employs 10+ individuals that identify with REDF's target population, that's great. We listed that target population earlier, but just to reiterate, that's a history of homelessness, incarceration, addiction, mental illness, opportunity youth, refugees, survivors of human trafficking, and domestic violence. Your organization may focus on a number of these. We want you to select which is the primary barrier that your organization addresses, and then there might be additional barriers that you're addressing as part of that. For instance, if you're supporting a homeless population, that population may have other barriers, including addiction, mental illness, survivors of domestic violence, etc. We want to understand kind of the full range of your program, but which is the one that you really excel at addressing? And then where do you want to improve? The ESE provides a wage that meets minimum local standards with opportunities for growth. That's what we're looking for, and family sustaining wages are especially valuable when they're appropriate for the role. We recognize that a barista role might not provide family sustaining wages in your area, but a coding position might. A coding position might not be a great fit for the population with the barriers that you serve, and we understand that. The ESE provides wraparound and workforce development to participants to help them to succeed. Okay, what does that even mean? Wraparounds, we're thinking about the web of services that really support the individual, but might not be related directly to the job. And then in terms of workforce development, these are the trainings and supports that help elevate them on their workforce journey. So this might be something like an OSHA certification. It might be something that would help them to land a job outside of your organization if you have a transitional program, or to work their way up within your program if that's the kind of program that you have as well. Okay. Leadership fit. So we're actually going to walk through this first one as the question. This ESE leader has a plan to grow the enterprise either in the area of revenue impact or both. So I'll go into that in a little bit. The next one, the ESE leader's life experience makes them a great fit to guide their organization. Either their personal or professional experience or both gives them a valuable lens with which to support participants and the business. Okay. So what do I mean by life experience? What would make me a good fit? Okay. I'll just speak for myself. I'm a domestic violence survivor and I have PTSD. I'm also a business owner myself. I launched my own business 4 years ago, and now it's a successful, thriving enterprise. And I think that being a survivor with mental illness, and I'm sorry, I actually find both of those terms stigmatizing, but those are the terms that are used across the industry. I believe that being a survivor with mental illness helps me as an entrepreneur because the lessons I learned in recovery are some of the same skills that I need to lead the business. And I really benefited a lot from the skills that I learned in my recovery, and I am able to apply those to my business and help it thrive. So I want to share our official REDF stance on ESC leadership, if that helps kind of outline like, what is it that we're looking for in this area? REDF believes that leaders of color and leaders with lived experience bring invaluable expertise to their work and to the sector. And so we seek to increase the allocation of REDF resources to leaders of color and leaders with the same lived experience as the population they serve. So if you're able to speak to this in your application, please do. If you grew up in the neighborhood where you now work, that's experience that helps you personally to lead your organization. If you created your program because you overcame an obstacle and now you're helping others do the same, that gives your leadership an important lens, and we really value that at REDF. If you have experience leading the type of business that your organization runs, please speak to that. And if you have experience supporting folks with the barriers that your organization addresses or managing a nonprofit, please speak to that. There are lots of ways that your experience may bring relevance to your program. It can be both personal and professional experience, and we really appreciate both. The ESC's leaders' life experience makes them a great fit. I'm sorry, so that was the one that I just went over. The first one, the ESC leader has a plan to grow the enterprise either in the area of revenue or impact or both. What we're looking for there is the one that I'm sorry, I'll address that one when we go into greater detail about the single question. For a moment, I thought I had missed that one. And then this final one, the ESC leader is excited about the potential to learn and grow in community with others, giving and receiving feedback with peers, and putting the learnings from the accelerator to work for the organization. So Celia mentioned a little bit about this one earlier, but the accelerator is an opportunity to increase credibility. It does come with a $20,000 grant. Those aren't what we're hoping that you're excited to get out of the accelerator. We really hope that you are excited about the opportunity to network with professionals from the industry and an amazing cohort of peers that are going to help set your organization on a real path for growth. And then this last area, business model. So the ESC has a compelling business model with a stable customer base. What is a compelling business model? I don't know. You tell me why your business model is compelling. Maybe you have 3 different services that employ people at different stages of their recovery, and they work their way through each, and then depending on where they come in, they're able to move on. Maybe you provide a unique certification that sets your participants up for success and allows you to bid on contracts that have better margins. I don't know, but whatever it is, whatever makes people say, wow, when you tell them about your business, tell us about that. The ESC is an industry that is insulated from destabilizing market forces and or an industry ripe for growth, such as technology, environmental or climate, and advanced manufacturing. Tell us about your industry, okay? We know that food was hit hard this year, so what did you do to stay afloat? We know that environmentally friendly deconstruction is really growing. How are you taking advantage of the trend? Tell us about the way that your business operates within your industry. And then this last one, the enterprise is in an overall strong position, both operationally and financially, to build on what already exists and with the right support and resources grow over the next 3 years. We are going to take a look at your financials. You'll be attaching 2 years of profit and loss statements along with the budget for this year. So if you have a business model with amazing margins that allows you to cover 70% of the costs of your wraparound and workforce supports, and you supplement the rest with donations, that might be great. Is it sustainable for you? Is it stable for you? We won't know. Do you have the revenue to experiment with new products or services that may help you scale? That's what we're really looking for. So as part of the accelerator, you will be setting goals and milestones around areas of your business that you want to grow. And we recognize that if those were things that were easy to do, you'd probably already be doing them. We'll help you through the process, but we know that those things might cost money as well. We want to see that you're in a place to be able to take advantage of those learnings and put them into practice. Okay. And I want to say this too. The accelerator is not set up to save a sinking ship. I know that that's hard. I know that COVID has been hard, but the accelerator doesn't have that capacity. The accelerator is really set up to help promising ESCs with a track record of success to reach the next level and grow their impact. And that's why we have this eligibility requirement around revenue. So if you are in an area where you're like, we need to get into the accelerator just to survive, I think that's not what the accelerator is really set up to support. If you're coming to the accelerator because you're thinking, we are doing awesome work, but we need a boost, we need some support to get to the next level, that's the kind of ESC that we're really in a good position to be able to support through the accelerator. So I want to emphasize here, no matter what you're doing, you're already doing an amazing job. You have a business that's making the world a better place, you're improving your community, you're changing lives, and you could be a Nobel nominee and still not make it into the accelerator. We have 18 spots and there were over 90 people signed up for this webinar. So acceptance into the accelerator is not an evaluation of you or your ESE. We're creating a cohort that's diverse across geographies, industries, business sizes, and ages, serving participants with all different barriers. And there's a lot that goes into creating that cohort. So if you're not accepted this spring, we hope that you'll still apply again in the future. You might be a great fit for REDF and not the right fit for this cohort. We want to stay in touch with you and keep you in the REDF community if it's something that you feel like could support your organization's growth. Okay, now the next part of this webinar is going to be really dry because I'm going to go through the actual SM Apply platform and show you this is what it looks like. Okay, so here's what I'm going to go over: the login, the homepage, how to start, how to save, how to mark something as completed, how to move forward, and then how to submit. Okay, so here we are on the front page. I am not a person that reads directions. If you give me a box of furniture from IKEA, I will probably not even look at the instructions until I am close to crying. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll read the instructions. I can't figure it out. I highly recommend that you don't follow that approach and that you read the instructions before you begin, because it might help you in terms of answering the questions, give you a little bit of insight into what we're looking for, and it might also help you to better understand just the functionality of the platform itself. So highly recommend you read the page. You're going to sign up with your email. Please don't use your Hotmail burner account. We don't sell your info, but we might email you with an opportunity that you don't want to miss, or we might use that email to follow up with you if we have a question about your application. So again, please don't send us to spam. Please make sure that our emails are going to end up back in your inbox and that we're able to get a hold of you if we have any questions. And your first task is here. So these are the eligibility questions. You'll see in the box on the right-hand side, your tasks, eligibility questions, and on the bar above that, application. That's where you want to be, and that's where we'll begin. Okay. So this is the main screen, and most of your application experience is going to look like this, with a bar on the left that tells you where you are in the application, and then the application questions themselves on the right. These are the green circles that tell you whether the section is untouched, in progress, or submitted. Down at the bottom, you can save and continue editing or mark as complete. Once you mark it as complete, you can't edit it anymore. So only mark it as complete if you're actually complete. If you don't mark this as complete, you'll see that you're stuck here on this screen. So when you're done with the eligibility requirements, you're going to need to mark them as complete in order to move forward. You can see that they haven't been submitted because this green circle is only half full and 0 out of 1 tasks is complete. Okay, then you'll know that you've submitted and made it past the eligibility requirements when you see that the circle is full with a check mark and that the menu on the left now opens up and you can see the rest of the application. So on the left-hand side here, you can see section 1, financials, current fiscal year budget, etc. Okay, and this is where you can actually jump from one section to the next. Okay? You can see here that I have sections 1, contact, and 2, mission, already started but not submitted. You can see that in that green circle. Okay? So you can save and go back and go through different sections without having to submit in order to move forward. There is one tricky section of section 1 in contact info. It has 2 pages. So if you look and you can see that you filled out questions 1 through 7, but are missing questions 8 through 14, that's why. It might be a little bit confusing, like where are the rest of these questions? That's where they are, but that's the only section that looks like that. So here on the left, you can see that I have submitted all of these sections. But then down below, it says that only 6 out of 10 tasks are complete. So what's going on there? You have to scroll down in this bar, okay? And when you do so, all of the rest of these sections will open up. When all of your tasks are complete, that turquoise bar will be full and all of your circles will have checks that you're ready to submit. Okay, so 10 out of 10 tasks are complete. All of my green circles have checks. I'm ready to go. Okay, and then my last step. So once you've already marked each section as complete, you can't go back and change it anyway. So I don't really know why they make it so easy to review what you have already marked as complete because you can't change it anyway. But if for some reason there's a technical error or glitch when you're in the process of filling out your application, please reach out and we'll help you. If though you decide once you reread it like, oh, I used third person instead of first person here and I don't really like the way that sounds, don't worry about it. Sounds great. We're not worried about that part. We can figure out what you meant there and we're excited to receive your application in the form that it's in. Okay, so let's talk about one of these questions. Okay, this is an example of one of the long form questions. Again, there a quarter of the questions in the application out of 37 are these long form questions. This one, what is your long-term vision for your ESE? What are the critical goals you seek to achieve in the next 3 years? Please speak to opportunities to grow your ESE's impact and/or revenue. Below, you'll see the tip. Please provide a summary of projected goals and outcomes. Please include how your plan will directly influence your social mission. Okay. So the first thing that I noticed there is that there are a number of questions within the question. So what I'm going to do, and this is just me personally, you can do this in whatever way makes sense for you. The first thing that I'm going to do is to cut and paste my question into another doc so that I can kind of write out my ideas and move things around. That helps me. You do it in whatever way helps you. It also helps in case I lose my answer in the middle of writing. And some questions have word count limitations. So I can make sure that I'm not going over my word count, but I'm using all of the allotted words if I need to. I'm not just putting in words to have more words there, but only if I need to fully explain something. So once I cut and paste the question, I'm actually going to break it down into the sub-questions. What are all the things that this question is asking for? I need to answer all the questions. And then I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to the tip. Okay, so let's say that my long-term vision for my ESE is to employ 30 full-time participants a year with a 70% retention rate after 6 months. And right now, I know my retention rate is 40%. And I've done some informal interviews with participants who are struggling, and it seems like if we were to provide a transportation stipend and weekly group therapy, we could potentially make a big impact on that retention rate. But in order to offer those supports, we would need to increase revenue by 20% a year, year over year. And in order to do that, maybe we're planning on launching 2 new services. And the 2 things that we're considering are a road construction safety program and an off-hours construction crew support service. Both of these are services that would increase our competitiveness with current and future clients. Okay, so those are kind of the things that I'm thinking about. Now I need to put all of that into an answer. So I'm gonna massage that and think about how I wanna answer that, and then put all that back together and say this. My long-term vision is to increase our ESC's revenue by 20% year over year for the next 3 years. By doing so, we believe that we can reach our goal of serving 30 full-time participants with a 70% retention rate after 6 months. In order to meet this goal, we need to increase our wraparound and workforce supports by offering transportation and on-site group therapy. To pay for these increased supports, our 20% a year or our 20% year-over-year growth may be accomplished through the launch of 2 new client services, a road construction safety program and an off-hours construction support service. Both of these are services that would increase our competitiveness with current and future clients. With 30 full-time participants employed, we can double our impact as we continue to focus on our mission of providing living wage jobs in the construction trade to formerly incarcerated adults in the state of Texas. Okay, so I'm not putting in a lot of extra details, but I'm really trying to speak to what the question has asked. The critical goals that I seek to achieve, the opportunities to grow my ESC's impact and revenue, and they're broken down into the goals and outcomes and how they will impact my social mission. So I hope that that's helpful in terms of how we might approach one of these long form questions. Okay, and then last step before I would submit it, I would do a word count on it and make sure that it's going to fit before I submit. Okay, so let's take a look at these key dates. We've got Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. That's today. And we've got another webinar planned for Tuesday, March 16th. So 2 weeks from today, if you are struggling with your application, we invite you to come back and we'll have an informal opportunity to ask specific questions related to the application. The application closes on the 29th of March. And then the accelerator kicks off June 2021. So it's a pretty short turnaround between the time that you submit your application, we review applicants and get back to them, and then we start programming. We understand that it's a pretty tight timeline. If you have any questions about the application process or need assistance, please reach out to us. Accelerator@redf.org is there in the presentation itself. I also want to share a couple of links that will help you to be successful in the application process. So the first one is the application itself. It'll be really helpful if you have that link, and there it is. But you can also find the link on our website. And on the REDF workshop page, you can go straight to the REDF Workshop Accelerator 2021 page, find all kinds of details, including information about the curriculum, about the program, about the dates, the level of commitment, what we're looking for, our guiding principles, all kinds of great information there. So we invite you to check out REDF Workshop. And if I could get someone from our team to put these links in the chat, that would be great and super helpful. Okay. And so The last thing I want to do then is provide an opportunity for questions. We've got about 15 minutes left, but if we have more questions that we are unable to answer, I would love to stay on afterward and make sure that everybody's questions are answered. I've been driving the presentation, so I haven't seen the chat or the Q&A. So Celia and Chelsea, if you're able to support addressing questions from the chat and the Q&A, that'll be great.
Yeah, I've also been answering a few folks' questions
Awesome.
in Q&A, so appreciate all y'all's patience as I tried to type out detailed answers. Some of them I did mark as to be answered live, just because I think multiple folks may have the same question. So starting, I guess, from the top, Lauren, can you see Q&A now, or is it fine reading them out?
If you want to read them out, that way participants can hear the question itself.
Solid. So Andrew, you asked a great question. Might you consider enrolling 2 leaders from an organization who work collaboratively in running the enterprise? Lauren.
Such a great question, and we actually get this question a lot. And because we get it a lot, we're really taking it seriously and trying to figure out how we can make this a good fit. So there are parts of the curriculum that we realize, like, oh, it would be great if both the leader of the organization and the program manager, or the leader of the organization and the fundraising person, were both able to attend this. Unfortunately, it's only possible for us to bring in one person from your organization. And part of that is because the cohort is really a peer learning experience. So as much as you want to be able to share this with your team, you're actually working a lot with the other people in your cohort and giving and receiving feedback from them that then you're taking back to the team. That said, we're looking for opportunities within the curriculum that we can say, okay, this is a good chance for us to be able to bring in your development person or your programs manager person. Maybe we'll have a roundtable or a Q&A that would be helpful for them to hear. So thank you for the question. We're thinking about how we can make it accessible for your entire team to learn. Right now, we're really relying on you to share the learnings from the accelerator back with your team. And we'll look for opportunities to bring in the specific person from your team, if possible, that would benefit from hearing that information along with you.
Andrew, if you're still on the call, let us know if that did answer your question. If not, we can follow up through email at theaccelerator@redf.org. Michaela, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. You asked, regarding the enterprise requirements for wage, do contracts count towards that eligibility requirement?
That's a really good question too. So we recognize that in the current landscape, that there are some jobs that might be contractor jobs, that might be gig jobs. And as much as that is the reality of certain industries, like design and media production come to mind, we're actually really focused on jobs that provide either a wage or a stipend that leads into a wage and provides full-time employment.
Awesome. And I know there was another question asked by Andrew. You asked another question about kind of your contract as well per service with the government, and that does qualify as earned revenue if you're getting that, if that is a pre-amount that is being agreed upon for work that you will then deliver. Awesome. And Michaela, let us know if that answered your question. Anonymously, someone asked, when you say an organization must have been in operation for at least 12 months, how do you measure that? If the documented work started over 12 months ago and board approval has been gained over a year ago, but the organization has not formally been incorporated via IRS until recently, can you still apply?
If the organization was bringing in funds, bringing in revenue, then yes. And if you have any questions about that, let's circle back to that. And I want to make sure that I'm giving you the right information and answering your question. It sounds like you're good to go. I just want to make sure that I understand all of the kind of constraints. Great question. Thank you.
Awesome. Catherine asked, can you talk about agencies that may have multiple businesses and different phases of growth?
Great question. Yep. Okay, so we have taken a look at a couple of these types of organizations recently. So you might have multiple business lines within your organization, and we are asking that only one of those business lines is applying and is represented there. So you might have a parent organization, and within the parent organization, you have a catering business and a vending machine business and a cafe. We're asking that you are applying to work on only one of those business lines while you are in the accelerator. And you want to think about which of those business lines is really primed for growth. Which one really, when you think about the criteria that I shared earlier in terms of the mission, leadership, and business model, which one you feel like really speaks to what we're looking for, and select that one. And because it's only one person from your organization that is represented there, it might be the person that leads that business line, but if the person that leads the business line isn't actually able to make program level changes, so those changes that impact participants, like increase the amount of childcare support that participants are getting. If you're not in the position to do that, and it's the person at the agency level that's in the position to do that, then they are actually the person who would apply to the accelerator. I hope that helps.
Cool. Thank you, Lauren, for that. Another question we got was, do you consider youth development nonprofits in ESE? So this organization that Sid wrote was, we provide professional development, media arts training, and employ opportunity youth. So foster low-income, homeless, and creative economy work based on learning experiences.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's incredible work. And yes, that is exactly the kinds of ESCs that we support. If you're wondering, like, what are the other ESCs that have participated in the accelerator or who have received grants from REDF, you can find both of those pieces of information on our website, and you can learn more about the types of organizations that have gone through the accelerator and have received portfolio funding as well.
Awesome. Julie asked, how likely is it if you go through the accelerator that you will have the opportunity for the 20K grant that's mentioned?
Great question. Everyone who goes through the accelerator receives and completes the program receives that $20,000. So it is an unrestricted fund. You're not, you don't have to use it for anything specifically, but we do want to kind of note that, like I said before, part of the experience of being in the accelerator is saying, okay, we think that if we, increased our business line in this one direction, we might have an opportunity to really grow our revenue this year. And we're going to run a small experiment to see if that could play out. And that experiment might involve, there being costs. And so we recognize that you might need that $20,000 in order to run that experiment. Obviously it doesn't have to be the entire $20,000 to run that single experiment, but that you might need discretionary funds in order to implement some of the learnings from the accelerator.
Thank you, Lauren. You're knocking them out. And appreciate y'all for these really great questions. Jess asked, they just wanted to confirm, they understand just to clarify what our definition is for earned income. So if a business revenue is below 100K, but an org receives individual donations, does that count towards 100K?
Nope. Your earned revenue is the revenue that you're taking in from the sales of your goods and services. So any kind of supplementary revenue that could be in the form of donations, that could be in the form of grants that you've received, that is not earned revenue. That does count toward the overall revenue of your organization, and we'll ask you to share both along with your costs. But in terms of your earned revenue, we're really looking for that 100,000 threshold to be income from the sales of your goods and services.
Solid. And let us know if that answered your question. Catherine asked, if you have multiple businesses, does the one business that applies have to meet the income and job goals at the start? That is, they mean to grow to that point, but will be depending on the resources of the other larger, older businesses to have the resources to grow and a source of participants.
So I have a feeling that I know which question this is. And I think, you know, I would say let's talk offline because, is this Catherine? Yeah. Let's talk offline, Catherine, because I think I understand what you're asking. And I had the same question when I looked at your organization. Like, if I were Catherine, which of the business lines would I choose to apply under? And I might have a goal, you know, that's really strong goal and some great data to show like, oh, this is, you know, really going somewhere, but the business line is new and it still does need the support of the others. So let's talk offline, and I'll follow up with you after the call. Thank you.
And we have everyone's email addresses from RSVP. So if you do happen to get an email from Lauren or myself, just know it is not spam. We're just following up on your question. And Samia asked one question. We're a nonprofit with a fiscal sponsor. One of the app questions asks if we operate under a parent org. Is that including a fiscal sponsor?
Yep, and that's no problem. Like, we are happy to serve a nonprofit that has a fiscal sponsor. Not a problem at all.
Those are all the questions.
Hey,
oh, wow,
what do you
we finished
know?
Ask 12. Wild. I mean, Lauren, I think you mentioned it. We are here, but if y'all have questions, feel free to continue to post them. Oh, Gregory asked, if our organization was formed under another organization over 4 years ago, sorry, hold on. Sorry, Gregory. Pause. Lauren, do you want to close out like the official webinar?
Nope, I just wanted to close out my screen so that I could see the chat and support you.
Okay, solid. But Meta, this is time, right? Just making sure.
Yes, let's finish this one up, okay, and then we close out.
Okay.
Cool. Solid. Thank you all for staying. So Gregory asked if an organization was formed under another organization over 4 years ago. However, as of January 2021, we've decided to move to have it as a standalone 501c3. Are we still able to participate? We have financials for the past 2 years and a current budget.
Yep, you're great. Good to go. No worries there. Thank you for the question, though.
Awesome. Great. That was the last question in Q&A.
Okay, I realized that we didn't have a chance to introduce ourselves at the beginning. So if you are still here, I just want to say thank you. I'm Lauren. I am the Accelerator Manager. I'm really excited to connect with you all. I know in a webinar format, we don't get to see your face and send you all of our love and excitement, but please know that it's radiating out to you. I'm so glad that y'all are here and really excited to connect soon.
And as Lauren mentioned, we're here for a few more minutes, or, you know, we're here. So if you do have questions that you didn't get to ask, we're on standby. Let us know.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
It looks like we got everybody's questions and we're able to. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, now I'm seeing people's names who I recognize, and I'm so excited. I see people's names from the REDF labs and workshops that we did with Dave, and yes, so glad to see you all. Earned revenue alone isn't, should we still apply? Okay, if your earned revenue is not yet at 100,000, but you think it's going to be there this year because you've got a contract lined up, yes, go ahead and apply. If you're at $30,000 and you know that you're not going to be able to get to 100,000, please see the resources on the REDF workshop and think about what you can be doing in the next year to increase that earned revenue with the supports that are provided there. Please keep in touch with us. We want to support you on your journey, and as soon as you are eligible to apply, we want to get you in there.
Apologies if I mispronounced your name. Demontia asked the question, for nonprofits, how do you gain revenue without grants and donations?
Okay, so what we're looking at is having a separate business line. So for example, your organization may install solar panels on residential roofs across your state, and your program is training and supporting individuals who are overcoming barriers in that job. You are selling their services and you are making income that is then going back to supporting their success. That's how the organizations that we are working with as employment social enterprises are bringing in revenue that is earned, not just donations. Hope that helps.
Yeah, let us know if that answered your question.
And combined with grants, grants are not earned revenue. So we're really looking at that 100,000 as earned revenue, not grant revenue. You might have a contract coming in this year that you know that is going to get you to 100,000. Great, please apply. If you know that the earned revenue, so the money from the goods and services that your business sells, is not going to hit 100,000, isn't going to get you close, then please do see those REDF workshop resources. Think about how you can start moving your organization in that direction, and stay in touch, because we want to support you once you're there, and we want to support you as part of our family until you get there.
Awesome.
All right, we've got about 15 people hanging out, but I think if there's no more questions, I think we should probably close out, and I'll stop the recording.
Okay, last call. Okay, thanks everybody.